Nurdle. It's a fun word to say, but nurdles are not as fun as they sound. But what exactly is a nurdle? Nurdles are essentially raw plastic pellets, before they're made into anything. Nurdles and other microplastics can be smaller than 5 millimeters in diameter, and even as small as 1.6 micrometers. I know, fascinating. So why do we care about them? Because they end up in the ocean, where they cause myriad problems. But how do they end up there? Well, in the 1950s, the global annual production of plastic was 5 million tons. By 2008, that had risen to a whopping 230 million tons annually, and a huge portion of that plastic ends up in the ocean. A large portion of that portion ends up in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a huge floating gyre of debris swirling in the middle of the ocean. It's about the size of Texas. Sure, that's disgusting, but what does all this have to do with nurdles? Well, nurdles and other microplastics are in every ocean on Earth. We know little about their effects because few studies have been conducted, but they are routinely found in the stomachs of seabirds like the Laysan albatross in such remote places as Midway Atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. As charismatic megafauna, birds are some of the more studied animals, but it is clear that plastic of all sizes harms them. But maybe we should start at the other end of the food chain. In 2008, researchers found that the common mussel can ingest plastics 3 to 9.6 micrometers in diameter, and that within 3 days, the plastic had been transferred from the gut of the mussel to its circulatory system. Similarly, in 2009, researchers found that krill can ingest pieces of plastic 20 micrometers in size. The krill then get eaten by fish, which get eaten by bigger fish, and bigger fish, and bigger fish, which then get eaten by birds. That plastic doesn't go anywhere, it just stays in those animals until they die, at which point it goes back into the ocean. Now, there are two main sources of microplastics found in the ocean: primary sources and secondary sources. Secondary sources refer to plastics that have already washed into the ocean and are breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. At this point, you're probably saying to yourself, well then, the only thing we need to do is keep plastic out of the oceans. And I don't litter, duh! But unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. We need to consider those primary sources, those products for which plastic is specifically manufactured in nurdle-sized bits. These products lurk around every corner, or more accurately, in every corner of your cosmetics cabinet. Ever heard of exfoliation, scrubbing away dead skin cells? Well, most exfoliating scrubs and creams achieve that with things called microbeads. And do you know what they're made of? Plastic. Little plastic beads that go straight into the ocean. If you use anything that has polyethylene anything in it, I recommend you throw it away and never buy it again, because the plastic in these products is designed to be washed into the oceans. Instead, you can look for alternative products and companies which often use ground-up walnut shells and apricot stones instead of plastic beads. Now, if the thought of all those animals choking on little plastic pellets isn't enough, let me tell you about POPs, persistent organic pollutants. Not only do humans put tons of plastic into the ocean, but we also make sure to put plenty of other pollutants in. And scientists are beginning to find that some persistent organic pollutants latch on to microplastics, which then get ingested and further compound the problem of plastic in the ocean. As I said before, we know very, very little about this problem because it is nearly impossible to evaluate how much plastic is in the ocean, let alone sample it when it's measured in micrometers, let alone determine the impact it's having on marine life, let alone determine the impact it may be having on us. But I think it's safe to say that it surely isn't doing any good. So the next time you're at the store, try to avoid all the plastic packaging, but especially avoid those nurdles. They're not as fun as they sound.